So here's the big question. You're interested in value investing and valuing and evaluating businesses on a deep level, but you don't know how, even after researching for hours, probably dozens of hours, hundreds of hours on the internet, and because nobody else shows you how to do it. This podcast has all those answers and much more about value investing and finance. My name is Jason Rivera. Welcome to Value Investing in Your Car.
Hey, Jason here. In this episode of Value Investing in Journey in Your Car, I'm going to talk about investing in stocks that are going through bankruptcy. Before I get to that, though, I need to let you know that you can get this as a podcast anywhere on the world for free on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Anchor, iTunes, and more. You can get this series as a podcast anywhere in the world for free and on the go. Okay, you probably saw me smile when I was talking about the intro to this. And there's a reason. Please bear with me. I have notes on the screen behind me, so I'm going to be looking at those on occasion to make sure I get some of the numbers right. But today I want to talk about investing in stocks that are going through bankruptcy. Before I get to that, though, I need to kind of backtrack a little bit. So in March, we started dealing with in the United States, we started dealing with lockdowns, closures, bankruptcies, blah, 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 all that stuff that's going on worldwide in mid-March due to the coronavirus. This is having huge kind of macroeconomic impacts, which I've talked about at length in Facebook Live videos that I've done, and I will link some of those below if you want to know some of the more macro stuff that's been going on. But I'm not a big macro guy. I know about it. I know a lot about history, financial history, world history, all that kind of stuff because it interests me. But I'm not a macro guy. I'm a very micro-oriented investor. I don't care if the market is at all-time highs or all-time lows. If I can find stocks that are good, have good balance sheets, produce good cash flow, have competitive advantages, they're undervalued, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter if the stock market as a whole is overvalued or undervalued. If I can find those kind of stocks, I will buy pretty much whenever. But what I'm going to tell you about today is an example of why some people hate big corporations. Because it's ridiculous what's going on with this company. I'm talking about Hertz. If you haven't been following the news on Hertz, they've had a little bit of a wild ride over the last month and a half. So at about mid-May, the company released its latest quarterly financial reports, and they were horrible. Essentially, the then CEO said, Catherine, what's her name? Catherine, I'm trying to find it here, sorry. It's not popping up on this article, so CEO, that's working, sort of. Okay, that's not working either. CEO Catherine, again, I can't remember her last name, of Hertz, pretty much announced that the company was dealing with some horrible stuff, of course. When you think about Hertz, their business model is heavily reliant on travel and airports, both of which have been absolutely hammered during this coronavirus crisis. Probably, frankly, the two worst industries that have been hammered in this coronavirus crisis thus far. Travel and airports. People, if you're not familiar with Hertz, they are a car rental company. Most of their locations are now at airports, and people use their car rental services when either they're going to a new city for work or play, I guess is the best way to put it, or if somebody needs to rent a car in their new city and they drove and their car broke down, something like that. So they're affected numerous ways by this pandemic. Again, the two biggest being pretty much complete stoppage of air travel in the United States. In about April timeframe, it was down to tens of thousands instead of normally 2 million or millions of passengers every day going through TSA checkpoints. I think I'll try to find this source, but I think it was as low as 19,000 on a single day through TSA checkpoints in the entire United States. That's how little people were traveling. March, I think it was March, April timeframe. Travel, not just air travel, car travel, people taking road trips, people using, if their car breaks down, they will use for example, Hertz car rental. But people aren't driving as much, so their cars aren't breaking down as much. There aren't as many accidents. There aren't as many people traveling with airports. So Hertz is being hammered horrifically bad in the kind of lead up to this. Then everything comes to a complete stop, and the CEO says on this conference call, or on this quarterly call, that companies aren't built for zero revenue. Shocking statement, right? Company, billion-dollar company, at the time, talking about zero revenue. That's pretty horrific. What makes this even worse is the company has $19 billion worth of debt and only $1 billion in cash. And they have to continue paying these payments on their debt to continue. That most of the debt is from car leases. They lease cars from companies like Ford, GM, Toyota, blah, 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 blah. And they use those cars to rent out to people traveling through hotels, for example. That's essentially their business model. $19 billion in debt, essentially zero revenue, complete stoppage of travel, $1 billion in cash. The company tried, it was in such dire straits that it slashed some of its car prices in half and tried to sell them on used car lots to raise cash. Shortly after this conference call, I think it was 5 or 6 days later, company filed for bankruptcy. The CEO resigned. That's why I said former CEO in what I said earlier. And the company's going through major issues. They're going through what's called I think it's Chapter 11 restructuring bankruptcy. So they're going to stay operating. They're going to work to rework their debt covenants. They're going to lower their debt load, get more favorable debt terms, all this kind of stuff. But their plan right now is to restructure the company, stay in operation, and then come out with either lower debt due to these restructurings or a reprieve in terms of lower interest rates, longer payment terms, stuff like that. The company has 700,000 vehicles in its fleet. Again, 700,000 cars nationwide. I can't remember if they're worldwide. Nationwide, 700,000 cars in its fleet. It's trying to sell them super low prices just to raise some cash. Trying to rework its debt terms, trying to stay in operation while the company is essentially earning zero revenue. These are catastrophic things kind of by themselves, but rolled together, this is even worse. Again, I said Hertz plans to do this restructuring bankruptcy. That's what it wants to do. It's working with its creditors now, and it probably will come out and restructure its debt and come out of bankruptcy. But that's not 100% certainty. It could go completely bankrupt and fail, too. I don't see that happening. I don't see that as likely. But it could happen in these kind of bankruptcy situations. So, of course, when markets crash, anytime a market crash or a stock crashes, anytime in history, really, people automatically think that, oh, this is a cheaply valued stock because its price went down. As value investors, we know price and value are two completely different things, but most people do not. So what happened after the company filed bankruptcy? It crashed badly, of course, because in most bankruptcy filings, equity holders, shareholders, get wiped out completely. Structure of payments and debt holdings. Again, you probably know this, but I'm going to go over this briefly for context to what I'm going to say in a little bit. debt holders get paid first, senior, secured, unsecured, all that kind of in tiers, but debt holders get paid first. Preferred stock, if there is any, gets paid next. Shareholders get paid if there's anything left over. In most bankruptcy filings, current shareholders are completely wiped out. They're replaced by new shareholders that come either via their debt holdings, their old debt holdings, or new debt holdings when they sell new shares. So people seeing the share price crash for a $1 billion company, I did a brief look at their balance sheet, and they had about $17 to $18 billion worth of vehicles in their fleet. Pretty good, right? So this company is definitely worth more than zero as a whole. But the question is its equity worth more than zero in a bankruptcy? I'll get to that in a minute. So, again, I don't know why this keeps happening. I'm not doing anything crazy with my hands. So, of course, when most people see a stock crash, or even the market crash, they automatically think, ooh, I can buy something undervalued. So I think it dropped as low as 56 cents per share. Then within 10 days of that, its stock jumped 888% to pre-bankruptcy levels, or to higher than pre-bankruptcy levels in terms of how much its shares were selling for on the market. Makes no sense. Knowing, again, I've been doing this for 13 years, so a lot of people don't know this. You probably do. But again, if you don't know what you're doing in the stock market, you probably shouldn't be investing in it. This is a perfect example of somebody about to get crushed. You buy something because it goes down in price. You don't check if it's value. You just think it's undervalued because it goes down so significantly in price. You buy it, goes straight up. You think, oh, I did something awesome. I made a lot of money. You're not, unless you sold out, unless you played that trade perfectly and you bought at the exact bottom and then you sold the exact top, you're going to get crushed. And I will illustrate that with what Hertz just released today. There's been speculation that they are in the process of working to sell up to $1 billion in new shares to raise funds for after they come out of bankruptcy, or to kind of prolong the bankruptcy process and to kind of stay in operations as they currently are. There have been speculation that they're going to sell up to $1 billion in stock. I'm thinking to myself, a couple days ago, I see this and why would anybody buy that stock? Because it's most likely going to be worthless. I talked to a couple people about this, and so the stock goes up 888% in 10 days, then it falls more, and then the news comes out today that Hertz is planning to sell up to $500 million in new shares, and they state in the filing that these shares could become worthless. They state that explicitly in the filing. And I will read the exact words to you here. This is from Market Watch, and again, I will link this below. But this filing comes after Hertz received approval on Friday from a bankruptcy court to sell up to $1 billion in stock. The company warned in the filing that because the company is bankrupt, the common stock could be rendered worthless. Shocking. Again, I talk about stock markets all the time. I love stock markets. I love investing. I love public company stocks. But this is absolutely absurd. That any court would allow them to do this, which it looks like they're going to be allowed to sell up to $1 billion in stock while they're going through bankruptcy. It shouldn't be allowed specifically because it says it could be worthless. And again, the keyword being could, because that's a catch-all term, and you read enough financial statements if you see the word could. It's because if and when, in this case, Hertz goes bankrupt, it's so they can't be sued. That's what that word could is for. It's not, it's going to be worthless, it may be, or it's not, it's could be worthless is legal terms for covering your butt. essentially, so they don't get sued. It's absurd that Hertz would want to do this. Again, I know they want to save the company, but they are going to essentially, if and when, again, very high likelihood in almost all bankruptcies, current shareholders, before the bankruptcy filing is finished, almost 100% of the time come out with zero money. So this essentially what they're doing is taking money by up to, again, $1 billion from shareholders who want to buy this stock, taking it to keep the company alive, and then these shareholders over here, their shareholders are going to go up and burn in flames. They're going to be, again, high likelihood that they're going to become worthless. It says it in the financial statements that I'll link. Again, I'll link the market watch report in the comments or in the section below this. In their own filings that they've had to present to a bankruptcy judge, says their shares could become worthless, but they're going to be allowed to issue up to $1 billion in stock. If that's not bad enough, again, they have $19 billion in debt. What is $1 billion in cash plus $1 billion in cash? That's only $2 billion in cash. If the company's still, people still aren't traveling for the most part in the United States, it's opening up more, people are doing it more. But business and work travel and personal travel is way down still. So they're going to continue, even after they come out of this, going to continue burning cash. They have $19 billion in debt already. This will give them maybe $2 billion in cash, tops. So I don't get how the economics work here either. Massive cash burn. I just don't understand this. And people, it's sad, but people are going to get crushed with this because people are going to say, hey, Hertz is offering new shares at a discounted price. I'm going to buy in and give them some of my money. What they don't know, because most people don't read filings or even read articles like this or a blog post like this or market watch articles, that when they do that, their money or their stock certificate is going to burn up. Go away. As soon as that money leaves their hands, leaves their brokerage, whatever, and goes to Hertz, it's going to poof, go away. Their stock, again, you have to remember stock is ownership in a company. So when these bankruptcy filings are likely finished, I told you a little bit ago about the old structure, debt, preferred stock, common stock. That's before. What's going to happen now, or usually what happens after bankruptcy filings, is there's a new debt structure with new terms, new payment plans, new interest rates, all that stuff. There's new preferred stock, if there is preferred stock, and there's brand new shareholders, common stock. Again, most old common stock people will go away. Preferred stock, if there's any, I don't think there is any at Hertz. They will get some ownership in the new common stock. Debt holders will get most of the new common stock. This entire situation is why people get crushed in the stock market. Because they don't know what they're doing and they jump in and they get hammered and they don't want to ever invest in the stock market again. This kind of similar stuff happened back in the Great Depression, where people forever swore off stocks because they thought the game was rigged. In this case, they are explicitly stating in their filings to, again, judges what could happen, in their words, if they study financial history, investing history, or bankruptcy filing history, or anything like that. With almost 100% likelihood, they would know that their common stock is going to go away, but most people don't take the time to read that kind of stuff or learn that kind of stuff. This is why you should avoid investing in common stock in bankruptcies, pretty much 100% of the time. Investing in debt is a different situation. You can make money investing in debt in bankruptcy situations. I've never done it, frankly, because it's too complex, too time-consuming, and too much out of my control. But I have analyzed situations where companies have gone through that, and I was like, ooh, this looks like it might be a good deal. So I may do that in the future. I pretty much can almost guarantee I will never invest in old common stock in a bankruptcy situation, even though it goes down a lot in price. Speaking of that, to get back to my original point on what's Hertz worth, it's got to be worth more than 56 cents a share, which I think it was $72 million market cap at that point. That has $17 billion in lease or vehicle leases, right? No, because when you subtract all of the assets from all the liabilities, Hertz, as of today, has a book value of about $1.5–2 billion. But that's not really their true number, because they are going to have to significantly slash, in all likelihood, again, during this bankruptcy, they're going to have to significantly slash the value of their vehicles on their balance sheet, which will bring down the value of their assets, which will likely take them to a negative book value per share price. When that happens, it means the company's shares are worth less than zero based on their asset value. Does that mean the company's worth less than zero as a whole? No. As a whole, no. Because you have to consider debt, preferred stock, and equity, and the assets and the operational value. Does that mean Hertz is worth less than zero operationally as a whole? No. But it does mean their equity is worth less than zero. So even if they fall to, in this case, an extreme case, so let's say their share prices drop to 2 cents a share, I still wouldn't buy. Because based on just the book value of, again, what's likely to happen during bankruptcy, they're going to have to write down their inventory significantly, which is going to lower their book value per share to a negative number. This is the kind of thinking you have to go through to become a great value investor. It's not just, ooh, I see something fall, I think it's worth more than this, and it'll go back up. In the short term, again, like you saw in this example, it will work in the short term, but I'm not worried about the short term. I'm worried about years from now, not days or weeks or months. I'm thinking about years into the future. So this kind of stuff is a perfect example of why, again, like I said at the beginning, why many people don't like big corporations, because smaller companies can't do this kind of stuff. It's also another example of why many people think the market is rigged. Because in this case, sort of is. Judge, again, I don't think the judge should allow this. He should, if he had a proper financial analyst on his team, and again, maybe he does, but there's no way a financial analyst should say this company can issue up to $1 billion in stock. There's no way, in my opinion. Again, it's just crazy to me what is happening. In these people who are buying Hertz are going to get hammered, and it's frustrating. Frustrating, because I want to help as many people as I possibly can, but I can't help everybody, and it's just is crazy. This entire Hertz situation is crazy, and I've been watching it every day to see what else comes out, and it's very interesting from a learning perspective. Again, I just talk about inventory write-downs, book value per share going negative, equity being worth less than zero, the structure of debt, and how bankruptcy filings work, and who gets paid, and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff in here that you can use not only for this situation, but for other situations in the future as well. So I hope this helps. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Hertz. Love to hear your thoughts on Hertz. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, love, share, subscribe, and comment, and hit the notification bell so you're notified every time we release a new video. If you're watching or listening on the podcast, make sure to like, love, share, subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment, download, all that great stuff. We would greatly appreciate it so we can help more people. And until next time, again, be careful out there. The economy is not good. The market is still going straight up. And I hope this kind of illustrates and helps you think about these situations again. I know you're probably a deep value investor like I am if you're here, but if you have somebody who has asked you about Hertz, should I invest in Hertz? What should I do? I want to pay 188%, blah, 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 blah. You might want to show them this video. Because they, depending on what they did, they may have dodged a bullet. They may have made some money in the short term, but if they didn't sell there, they may have dodged a bullet. So I'll keep you updated on this Hertz story, because I'm assuming more craziness will come out about it relatively soon, because it seems like news drops about this company every week and their bankruptcy filings and process and what's going on. It's just gets weirder and weirder. So until next time, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.